DIY business advice is incredible when you're building momentum. But if you're leading a multiple six-figure design firm and still trying to scale with surface level strategy, you're going to keep failing. Like you're working too hard for the results you're getting. I want to talk about the signs you've officially outgrown that level of DIY advice. Today, I'm talking to multiple six-figure designers. Maybe you have a small but very real team. You are busy, you are booked, I hear from you. Your problem isn't the pipeline, and you do have a big responsibility for payroll, making sure that all these design plans are getting out the door. I want to be really clear. Today's advice, it's not that DIY advice is bad, but it is that eventually and hopefully you've outgrown it. DIY advice is great. It pops up on your Instagram feed. It's those one-liners. It's on inspirational and make you think, yeah, that's a good point. But it's just that. It's a quick hit. It's not really about building the foundation and structure of your business. And it's just not calibrated for this stage that you're finding yourself in. First of all, sit back and congratulate yourself. You've outgrown it. Stick a feather in your hat. You've reached a new level on the playing field. But you may also find yourself going, so now where do I go for advice? Yeah, there comes a point where more information doesn't create more growth. But I will tell you what does, and it's better structure. So let's talk about DIY advice. Who is it really designed for? It's those early stages when you're hanging out your shingle for the first time. You're trying to gain some momentum. Maybe it's really about getting your first client or even your first process in place. It helps you with building confidence. And please don't mishear me. There's nothing wrong with that. We all can use a confidence boost, especially when we're starting something new. It can be about simple, tactical wins. And what we're talking about today is different than that. While that definitely has a place, we're talking about running a project and process-based firm. That's very different than those simple tactical wins. This is about how do you manage team capacity? How do you deal with complex cash flows? Have you even looked at your cash flow sheet lately? And maybe, how do you really become a leader and not just the person that happens to be the business owner or have the title after their name? DIY advice isn't wrong. It's just built for a different level than where you are playing at today. We're going to talk about when things start getting complex. It's a lot like baking a cake, right? In fact, remember back to the old box recipes where you drop in the oil and the egg and pop it in the oven? Yeah, and your design firm was that at one point. You could add a little bit here and a little bit there and grow, but eventually there's a ceiling, and I felt it in my firm when I hit it. It just wasn't getting the nod anymore. The coach I was working with at the time, it was just cookie cutter advice, and I didn't feel like she really understood the nuances of what my company was facing, the culture that we had created, the cash flow ramifications and expectations of the people that were on my payroll, and how to delicately balance that with client expectations and even make them work together well. You may be sitting back and saying, yeah, this hits. The advice sounds right, but nothing is really changing that I'm hearing out here. I want to let you know if that's the case, you are not alone. So you may be the person who's sitting here today and you go, yeah, Katie, I've tweaked my marketing. I've raised my rates. I follow all the right people on Instagram. Maybe I've implemented a new template and I should be feeling amazing about this. But there's still stress that's remaining. There's still bottlenecks that you're facing, and you're still the glue of the entire operation. That's a hard spot to be in. You're ready to get out of the box cake game, and you're ready to get into those custom recipes that really allow you to build the business you want to build. See, DIY advice usually solves isolated tasks. This is why it's really cute on an Instagram post, or why it makes for a cute jingle or a cute name of take my 6-week class and I will teach you how to make more money or solve your client problems or build a pipeline. But when you reach the level we're talking about today, your problems are now interconnected. You've built the empire, and you may not feel that way at the moment, but you have. You're a multiple 6-figure business, or you're close. And now your problems are all starting to relate to one another. And a 6-week class on a singular issue is not going to be that solve. This is why I'm saying if growth doesn't change how your business feels, the issue isn't effort, it's architecture. And as you know better than anyone, architecture is complicated. Everything's interdependent. We can't talk about an MEP schedule without talking about structural integrity, right? We're not going to get into the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, and all of that until we're talking 2x4s or 1x or whatever it may be, because it all works together. And as you grow your business, the same thing is happening. I also want to give you another sign that maybe you've outgrown that DIY advice. Do you find yourself solving the same problems on repeat? Maybe it's team issues that resurface over and over again. We had this on our team. We had a team member we loved who continually missed deadlines over and over and over again. We had to build a better system, had to build a better template. And when the person didn't respond to the template and respond to the system and didn't communicate, then we had to dive into the personnel issue of it, right? That's complicated. Maybe your client boundaries are blurring again and again and again. And you constantly find yourself going, gosh, why didn't I make more money on that job? Or why did that take so long? Or that just really felt like a painful experience. Maybe your workflow feels fixed until it doesn't. And you're going, why am I back here again? Why am I facing this issue yet again? I want to tell you, you're not alone. If you're feeling any of this, this is common. I hear from all of you frequently in my coaching business. And this is, I want to say, the norm more than the exception, which is great because it's something I love to teach to and work through, but just know you're not alone either. See, recurring problems are structural. They're not behavioral. I want to say that again because I think it's easy for us to internalize and think that it's our behavior that's the problem. But recurring problems are actually structural. They're not behavioral. Think of it this way. If the same issue keeps reappearing, you don't need a better fix. You need a redesign. Back to the interconnectivity of your business. Another sign you might be finished with all that DIY advice that's floating around out there and is so tantalizing in the moment but lacks complete substance is you don't need more information. You need better judgment. This is the difference of growing what I lovingly call your CEO wings. This isn't just about being the business owner. This is about CEOing. Yes, it is a verb. Let's be real. You already know a lot. You didn't get here and get to the point where you're close to multiple 6 figures, or you're there, or you're flying high on 6 figures because you don't know anything. You do know a lot. And you've consumed all the content that's out there, all the tantalizing Instagram feeds, all the 6-week courses. But this is different. When a big decision hits, whether that decision may be about hiring or compensation or pricing structure, all of a sudden you go, I really wish I had someone to sit in this space with me who understood my clients, how my business works, the people that are on my team, and how to really solve this in a meaningful and strategic way that aligns with the company that I have built. Because at this stage, growth is about decision quality. It's not about information value. I think one thing everyone can agree on today is we are not lacking in information. You can put about anything into the internet. You can listen to another podcast. You can go out there and Google your heart out. But the reality is that we don't need more information. We need custom problem solving solutions. See, the gap isn't knowledge, it's perspective. And perspective is really unique. It can only come from someone who understands your business. It can only come from someone who understands our industry. It can only come from someone who's actively playing in the field right now in a meaningful and significant way and understands the current hurdles that we're jumping over. See, you don't need another checklist. I've seen all your checklists over the last few years of coaching, and don't get me wrong, y'all can build a mean checklist. But you do need someone who understands how all those moving pieces affect each other. Because when you push in one area, it's going to push out in another. How do we do that in a meaningful, significant, and intentional way that builds the business that you want to create? All right, let's talk about another sign. Maybe you feel slightly frustrated when you consume the content that's out there. You find yourself maybe eye rolling. I already know this. Or you might think to yourself, this feels basic. Or why isn't anyone talking about the real complexity I'm facing? Ooh, those are such good questions. And they should be gut checks for you of, yeah, I'm past this level. And that's a great problem to have. That frustration that you're feeling isn't your ego talking, it's evolution. It's exactly what you were hoping for when you started the business, growth. So you're not stuck. You've just outgrown that beginner level strategy. It helped get you launched. But now, not only do you have to stay in orbit, but we got to get you to higher altitudes. I want you to think about it like this. DIY advice builds a foundation, and there is nothing wrong with that. We have all been there, whether it was 1 year ago, 3 years ago, or in my case, nearly 20 years ago. There is a place for foundational advice. And as we've discussed on this podcast, if you don't have a good foundation, you're going to have a really crummy house sitting on top of it. I do want you to think about how scaling requires integration, about how all of these things work in tandem, which is why the DIY advice doesn't work anymore, because it's not sophisticated, nor is it intended to be. It's no fault of its own, but it's not sophisticated enough to have the interconnectivity to explain the dynamics that happen when you begin to adjust or play with different aspects of the business. Interior design firms have nuance that just generic advice doesn't address. It may get you out of the gate, but it's not going to get you to where you wanted to be when you had the dream of starting this business. So when you start realizing the advice isn't wrong, it's just not enough anymore. You've migrated. That easy breezy milk-like advice, you want the meat and potatoes now. You want to get down to the real deal. And it's unique to your business and what you've created. It doesn't fit nicely in a 6-week course or a 2-week course. That's the moment. I want you to just see for 1 second that that is the moment that you're ready for a higher level of strategy. You've come to play in a whole new way. You've graduated out of the little leagues and the basics, and you're ready to go to the big field. If this episode resonated and you're at that stage where you built something real, but it's starting to feel more complex than the advice you're consuming on that quick hit Instagram feed, that's the exact work I love doing with designers. Please know I would be humbled and honored to work with you because, as we always say, your business should be working for you, not you working for it. And this is about taking away that structural ceiling most firms hit and blowing through it to build the firm you set out to build back when you hung out your shingle back in the day. I look forward to hearing from you. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.